Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Another great Caribbean American cultural icon has transitioned. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 27th April 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. The world has lost another cultural icon. Harry Belafonte passed away at 96. The world paused and tributes rolled for the American-born singer, actor and activist. The BBC replayed a minute portion of the life that was Harry Belafonte.
Oh, island in the sun, built to be by my...
Harry Belafonte was called the King of Calypso.
All my days I will sing in praise of your forest, waters, your shining sun.
He was born in New York, but his sound was Caribbean. From the calypso of Trinidad to the folk songs of his childhood home, Jamaica.
But I'm sad to say I'm on my way.
He was, for so many, a musical reminder of a place they'd left behind.
Now my head is turning around. Had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.
He returned to America as a teenager and set his heart on becoming an actor. But it was his voice singing in the clubs of New York that caught attention.
Daylight come and we want go.
First performer to sell over 1 million copies of a single album.
When your lover decides to fly.
Carmen Jones, with its all-black cast, gave him a lead role in a film. He also won awards for his stage and TV work.
Salt from a tail and go.
Shake, 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 Sinora, shake your body line.
But this was also an era of political struggle. Inspired by his hero Paul Robeson, he was at the heart of the battle for civil rights, shoulder to shoulder with Martin Luther King.
Dr. King had requested that I organize as many artists as were available to come down to perform tonight and to participate tomorrow in the march.
I wound up on McCarthy's blacklist and being called a communist. For a long time, I couldn't work or couldn't get employed.
Over the years, he continued to campaign. He worked for UNICEF. He organized USA for Africa. He spoke out against apartheid.
And just to note, he was born in America, but spent his earlier years living in Jamaica. Meanwhile, local tributes flowed in the nation's parliament as leaders reflected on the icon who showcased much about the rich and diverse culture of the Jamaican people in his art.
For him to have the biggest selling album at the time, to become the first Black American to win an Emmy, well, the first Black person to win an Emmy, to star in, to play lead roles in box office movies. He would have broken down barriers which we now walk over without recognition.
His talent was really prodigious, and I think you'd have to say the range of his achievements makes him a unique phenomenon in the world. I can't think of anyone else offhand who you could say was a superstar in music, in film, and in global political activism.
Belafonte used Jamaican folk music to become the biggest star in music at one point. But he also used that stardom to promote Destination Jamaica. Of course, the Minister of Tourism is enjoying what has come out of a Belafonte promoting our island in the sun.
May he rest in peace.
Antigua and Barbuda has joined in the global outpouring of grief following the death of Harry Belafonte. Among those with a deep sense of loss is an Antiguan and Barbudan who was Mr. Belafonte's drummer for well over a decade. ABS's Garfield Burford reports.
Tributes pouring in for the man with a strong Caribbean connection and a global influence.
He was born in Manhattan, but spent his early childhood in his family's native Jamaica. During World War II, Belafonte joined the Navy after dropping out of high school. Early in his career, the handsome and suave Belafonte became known as the King of Calypso. He was the first black person to perform in many plush night spots.
And there would be many other firsts as the pioneering singer and actor smashed racial barriers in the U.S. Belafonte died of congestive heart failure, according to his spokesman, Ken Sunshine. His death has also left a deep void for Kenny Clay Wilson, an Antiguan and Barbudan who was a drummer for Harry Belafonte.
15 years, 13 world tours. Listen, Tuesday morning, before I went to bed, Monday night before I went to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, I wrote on Facebook four names of my favorite people, and his name was one. And then I realized that he died the same morning. You can look at Facebook and see the post that I made.
Wilson was brought on board as a drummer for Belafonte through Lord Melody. He names shows at Carnegie Hall and Australia's Opera House as among the most unforgettable. Now, during those memorable 15 years, he was the only West Indian of the 26 musicians. He could not contain his grief as he spoke with us on Tuesday.
I'm trembling just thinking about him. It's sad. I knew it was coming. I had an idea. But you're never prepared for this. But I must say one thing, though. I thank him from the bottom of my heart because if it wasn't for him, I don't know what happened to me.
Belafonte was a titan in several spheres. The Associated Press says he was a civil rights and entertainment giant who began as a groundbreaking actor and singer and became an activist, humanitarian, and a conscience of the world. He was always proud of his Caribbean heritage. In 2018, he was bestowed with the Order of Merit by the Jamaican government for his outstanding contribution to culture. This is Jamaica's third highest national honor.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew is making a case reducing the gap between the haves and the haves-not for increasing the minimum wage. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline has more.
But what also came to mind is that through all of this development, we must ensure that the disparity that exists between those who have a lot and those who don't have a lot, that we narrow that gap. That is also essential for the takeoff. For no country with significant gaps between those who have and those who don't have can truly develop resilience, sustainability, and prosperity for all. And as such, I want to say that is why we are looking seriously at dealing with the minimum wage here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Meanwhile, keynote speaker Willa Franks-Liebert spoke of the accomplishments of the government and the progress the country has made in recent times. She noted this is the beginning of a new era.
Over the years, despite a number of bumps and hurdles, the Federation has steadily grown and developed, raising the standard of living for thousands of its people. World Bank statistics show that among the 15 Caribbean countries which make up the Caribbean community and common market, St. Kitts and Nevis has the second highest per capita income. At over US $18,000 per annum, it is second only to the Bahamas and classified in the high income bracket. It is also classified by the United Nations in its Human Development Report as having high human development.
The Constituency 8 Gala Dinner and Award Ceremony recognizes persons from the constituency who have made invaluable contributions to their respective communities and fields of endeavor. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Philip J. Pay of St. Lucia, speaking to reporters ahead of the budget address on Tuesday last, repeated government's commitment to addressing pressing issues like unemployment and national security. Leader of the opposition, Alan Chastity, meanwhile, is hoping for a significant injection into the agriculture sector, which he believes is in dire need of rejuvenation. Jason Darius of the DBS News World reports.
St. Lucians, both local and abroad, were tuned into Prime Minister Philip J. Pay's budget address on Tuesday, April 25th. The DBS News World got a chance to speak with the Prime Minister on Tuesday prior to his address, where he highlighted several key areas that remain in dire need of support, like that of national security.
Obviously, health and national security, and also we think that the unemployment is still in the guide. These are the three main issues, and of course, dealing with the vulnerable groups necessary.
And Prime Minister Pierre, despite being brief in his comments, did note that the government will seek to bring about relief in areas such as health, national security, unemployment, and marginalized groups. The Prime Minister did reveal that these sectors are closely related, and addressing them will bring about the sort of change that St. Lucia requires at this time. Leader of the opposition, Alan Chastity, shares in those sentiments. He also went further to include the agricultural sector, which he says is in need of rejuvenation.
So the biggest issue really is cost of living. I think that the agricultural sector is in a tailspin. Nobody is speaking about what's happening with the bananas. Bananas plays a very important part in the viability of our agricultural sector. I'm concerned about tourism. We've seen a substantial recovery, but we're not back to where we were in 2019. And with the diminishment of, or the reduction in airlift, I think that we'll have just as a good year this year as we did last year, but we're not going to see any substantial growth. I'd like to see this government get back on the path of construction, the airport, St. Jude's Hospital, the road reconstructions, and encouraging private sector people to get more involved in the construction sector. The call centers, there's been a deafening silence. I know that there's more business to be had. I'm not hearing anything from this government as it pertains to those issues, but those would be really the core issues that we were talking about. And again, we started a huge campaign on sports in this country. I'm very happy to see how well the kids did at the CRT Games, and many of those kids are resident at the Groselet Sports Academy. I'd like to see that program expanded.
The current administration continues to lead with its mantra of putting people first, as officials insist that the government continues to create a more accommodating landscape for the well-being of the St. Lucian people. St. Lucians will remain glued to the budget debates in the coming days to determine the budget's impact on their way of life. For the DBS News World, Jason Darius reporting.
Examinations at UWI's St. Augustine campus are expected to go on unhindered after protesting lecturers received their remit. Here is a story with Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News.
The exams will go on. The West Indian group of university teachers is calling it a victory in their favor.
So we got the news of the remit on Sunday. The campus principal formally informed us that the remit was obtained. We do not know the contents of the remit yet, but our grouse was not having received a remit which was submitted, for a proposal which was submitted since 2019.
The group has had no increase in salary since 2014, that's 9 years ago, and have withheld exam papers as part of Operation Blackout, geared toward just getting the CPO to commence the negotiation process.
We sent out a communique on Sunday night to all our members to submit the exams by yesterday, Monday, the 24th of April. So we expect that all the exams are in by now. I mean, give and take, extenuating circumstances, but nothing to do with Wigat's collective action.
Dr. Rampasad says her members were relieved to have gotten a response from the CPO, albeit on the very last day of their 6-week ultimatum.
So we called off, we're saying we're calling off all collective action because what we have to do now is engage in negotiations based on the remit, whatever it is. We sit behind closed doors, both sides. Our employer is who we negotiate with, which is the UE.
She laments that the CPO had their recommendations in hand since 2021 and believes had lecturers not embarked on their protests, they would not have seen any progress in their situation. They won't be embarking on any planned action soon.
If negotiations break down, we do that. Or if they are negotiated in bad faith. Because negotiations go back and forth. They have to now to remember, because of the peculiar circumstances, the campus management, led by the principal, has to take things back to the CPO and bring back things. So they're like the messenger. They're the emissary, right? And unless that process completely breaks down and they're negotiating bad faith, then we take action again. We're not writing it off completely.
Meanwhile, the Office of the Campus Principal has issued a statement announcing receipt of the remit. As it relates to exams, Principal Rosemary Antwine acknowledges Wigat's assurances that the papers were already prepared. Accordingly, she said, we do not anticipate any further disruption of the hosting of the semester's examinations. However, the campus has issued notices of changed schedules to 31 examinations on Friday night for which papers were outstanding. UE says the new dates will stand. Urvashi Tumari, Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.